This is Richard Myers. This video is the third in the series here on the Dorian Partners YouTube channel. And this video is one of the most important and perhaps is an introductory video to the concept of a direct gifting ministry partner. And so I want to just basically explain the program to you so you have the basic understanding of what we're talking about. First of all, I want to go back to the beginning of the church. And I think I want to see whether you, like me, are convinced in a truth that we need to implement. I think it's pretty much universally accepted that the church began on the day of Pentecost. And the thing that began the church was the baptism in the Holy Spirit. It had been predicted by John the Baptist. It had been predicted by Jesus. And then it happened. He said, wait in Jerusalem and wait for power. And then when power came, it was in the baptism into the Holy Spirit. So we ask, well, what happened? Obviously, Jesus began the church, but what exactly happened? And the answer is there in the epistles very clearly. And if we look at Romans chapter 12 and verse 5, 1 Corinthians 12 and verse 27, you'll see that the baptism of the Holy Spirit created us as members one of another. There was a bond between Christians that was created when Jesus said, wait for power. Now, in Ephesians chapter 4 then in verse 25, so we're Romans chapter 12 verse 5, 1 Corinthians 12 verse 27, direct statements, and then a direct statement in Ephesians 4 and verse 25. It says, therefore, after explaining some doctrine, we are members of one another. And so, when Jesus said, wait for power, and then when the power came, what happened is he made us members one of another. And so what I'm wanting to suggest is that the power of the Holy Spirit is made evident when we are teamed together. We work better together. Power is in the team. And so in ministry then, I think there's a principle that we should never be alone. We should always be in a team. And there's a number of things that happen when we team together. Maturity happens as each works against each other, and the various giftings and the various perspectives are ironed out in a context where in Ephesians it says, be diligent to preserve the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. And it's in this context that he describes us as members one of another. And then further in Jesus's life, now this was after the rejection was final, and he's now looking to the cross. And he says in Matthew chapter 18 and verse 20, wherever two or three are gathered together, there I am in their midst. I will be there. Now, it could say, whatever circumstance you're in, I'll be with you. No, he said where two or three are gathered. Again, the idea that the gathering together, the members one of another, associated with the power of the Holy Spirit. And so I'm just wanting you to embrace this concept, certify it by your own biblical study, so that it's important for and a priority in your life. Now, in that context, then, when you go out to minister professionally, I'm wanting to suggest to you that you do it within the context of a partnership, a ministry partnership. Now, this is different than missionaries who are raising support. It's similar in many ways, but it also is deeper and more profound. This partnership, this ministry partnership, means that we're there together. And one thing it would mean right away is that there would be daily, weekly communication, which is possible now with the digital world that we have. It's possible so if you're planning to develop a team, a gifting partnership team, then you should come up with a YouTube channel such as you're involved with here, maybe on a more private basis using other software platforms, but using those to communicate just a sentence, a phrase, a prayer request, an up-to-date, whatever it is, 2 or 3 times a week, let's just say, I would think would kind of be normal. And maybe you'd say, well, I'm going to be out for a couple of days, or if you're going to be away from your digital devices. And so this is part of the team, and the team then is really literally with you there on a daily basis as you keep them up to date, as they pray for you, and as sometimes they might come and visit you, and so forth and so on. Now, you're pastoring a local church in some locale, let's say Wenatchee, Washington, or a suburb of Dallas, Texas, or wherever it is. It's not a heavily populated area, and so a typical gathering of people would be less than 100 people. And typically in those circumstances, the business model of the local church is inefficient, doesn't work really very well, because there's just not enough people there to support a pastor full-time, and usually the pastor ends up working part-time. But you're in a customer provider relationship. There's what I call a financial subtext, because you're trying to build numbers to increase your available income. And so by having a team behind you, this subtext goes away. And you can minister with a purity, a spiritual purity, which I think gives a great advantage in ministry. Now, usually I want to contrast now on how you'll raise support. And I'm going to give you some very specific things, and I'm going to give you some irreducible things that you must do in order to raise a ministry support team. And first of all, the current situation where a group of people gather together and then they register with the state or the jurisdiction they're in as a corporation, and then they apply to the federal government for tax exempt status. That's kind of the standard practice, so that then gifts given to that group of people as they contribute money, they can deduct it off their income taxes. Now, I'll just tell you right out front, if you look at the tax laws and what's the current situation, tax deductibility is meaningless for 8 out of 10 people, maybe 9 out of 10 people. And the reason for that is a standard deduction. So that means you don't itemize, and the money you would give to missionaries and to your local fellowship to support the ministry, whatever it might be, is meaningless as far as your taxes are concerned for 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 people. Number one. Number two, when you register with the government, you insert yourself into a partnership where you, in a sense, make the government the final word of what you do and how you do it. Now, some people say, well, the government has never really gotten involved. Well, that's not really true, and it was certainly not true during COVID. I have data from one group of Christians, and they say that 4,000 of the churches were closed. In other words, they were closed because of COVID, because of the threat and the connection with the government through the tax deductible status and the incorporation with the state. Those groups were at the mercy of the dictates of the government, and when they closed, the finances became difficult, and they weren't able to reopen, and they were ended. The church actually where I was saved, the building that we gathered in and people sacrificed over the years, I don't know, 60 years, 70, 60, almost 70 years probably. They suffered, worked hard for that building, and now there's grass growing up in the cracks in the sidewalk out in front, and the building is empty. And so I would say to you that the whole idea of being employed by a 501c3 organization is a weak way to be in full-time ministry, for ways that I could go into, and I won't take the time except what I've just covered. You don't want to be connected to the government, because the government then is in control. And you don't want to be in a situation where there's just not enough financial support to enable you to teach and to support and take care of your family. So now, in what I'm suggesting now is this ministry partnership. And this is how it would work. In the IRS code, and it's Form 709, let me just stick it before the camera. Form 709, this provision in the tax codes is meant to allow people who, like myself, who are getting older, to transfer our money to a younger generation. And we can do it without consequence if we maintain a certain level, maintain under a certain level. And this year, 2024, and maybe higher in 2025, that level, that threshold was $18,000 per individual. So you could give $18,000 to another person. They don't have to be related to you, just another person. $18,000, and there's no consequence. The person receiving it does not claim it as income. It's a pure gift. And the person giving it does not have to pay gift tax and doesn't even have to file a form with the government. And so they could give $18,000 to 100 people, 1,000 people. But it's per individual per year and $18,000. And then the marital couple, a marital community, husband and wife, could give $36,000, $18,000 per person in the marital community. And so this provision enables a person then to give directly. And so what we've come up with then is the Direct Gifting Ministry Partnership Program, the Direct Gifting Ministry Partnership Program. And the way it would be carried out is that you would set up first of all, a bank account that would be separate from your current banking and your personal bank accounts. You'd set up a bank, maybe in a credit union, wherever, an offshore bank, whatever you want to do. You set up a bank account which is specifically dedicated to receive these direct gifts. And then maybe I, as a ministry partner, would just deposit $200, $300 each month, and I can set it up in my bank account to make that transfer to your account every month on an automatic basis. So on the 5th of the month, $300 would be transferred into your Direct Gifting Ministry Partnership account. Now, that account is dedicated just to these gifts so that every month then you could see a statement from that bank account and you would know exactly how your partnership is doing, how your support is coming in. Now, and so that's the first thing. The second thing, perhaps the first most important thing before you start this program at all, is to find an advocate, an advocate. Now, the nearest I could come to illustrate this in a secular world is an agent for a talent. So the agent then represents, brags about, presents the special qualities of the person that they're representing. So this advocate person, and you can have more than one, it'd be great to have 2 or 3. That's the first and most important thing, is to get an advocate. And they become your direct partner. They're working with you really more closely than all the other partners. And there may be more than one. It's a long-term friend and so forth. A long-term person that really knows you personally and can easily represent and vouch for you and brag about you and present your special qualities and the gifting that God has endowed you with for ministry. And so that's the first thing. We need that advocate, at least one, and we need that special bank account set aside. And then the advocate, then you could give this person, the advocate, names of people to contact, explain the program, and I want them to come to this website, this YouTube channel, and to this video. And so they can see the legitimacy. They can go in and do their own research on the gifting program of the IRS and satisfy themselves that this is something, it's not something shady. In fact, if you're a grandparent, almost every grandparent knows about this and is doing it. I don't know how many friends of my own children and grandchildren have parents and grandparents who they receive $18,000 each year in January. And of course, it changes every year. It started out at about $10,000, then it was $12,000, $14,000, $16,000, it's $18,000 for the year 2024. And these young people receive these gifts, and what's happening is the grandparents are wanting to provide a startup for their grandchildren, and this is a way for them to do it without any consequence. The person receiving the gift doesn't have to claim it as income, and the person giving the gift does not have to pay a gift tax. Further, does not even have to file a form with the government. So it's very clean, very simple, and so forth. So now the advocate, this primary advocate, if you will, would have access to this bank account and the bank statements. So the advocate could then go out and say, we need some additional supporters within the partnership, or that advocate then is really a person that is kind of keeping track of things on behalf of the partners and on your behalf as the vocational minister. And so now, just to rehearse, then we have a direct gifting. These are direct, pure gifts to a bank account, and it's supervised and overseen and organized by an advocate. And the advocate could report to the direct gifting partners, and the advocate could communicate and encourage and work with the vocational partner. Now, this enables, let's just give you some examples. Let's say you're in Wenatchee, Washington, or you're in a rural agricultural community, and the people you're ministering to are 32 people. And you're doing great. I mean, you're discipling them, you're encouraging them, you're praying with them, and so forth. And it's a great ministry. But there's no way financially that makes any sense as a current local church registered with the government and granting tax deductions. And by the way, the person giving the pure gift does not receive a tax deduction. But again, I just mentioned the tax deduction is meaningless anyway, because 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 do not even itemize their deductions. And so this is the Direct Gifting Ministry Partnership Program. I'll probably do another video. What I want to do is just bring the credibility to this program. And what this allows then, let's say that you're in Wenatchee, Washington. There's somebody in Dallas, Texas. I have a good friend who lives in Dallas, Texas. And they know you really well, and so they want to support you. They want to be in the partnership. With electronic communication, it doesn't matter where they're at on the entire earth. They can keep in touch. They're on board for the ministry. They could be in Atlanta, Georgia. I have another friend there in Atlanta, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, California. Across the nation, you could have partners, and all of these partners, they might not even know anyone in your direct ministry there in Wenatchee, Washington. They don't need to know. They just know that you're ministering to these people. You're leading people to Christ. And what this gives you then is a freedom to carry ministry out biblically. You don't have a financial subtext. You don't have to be the CEO of an enterprise and all of the things that come with the church being an enterprise. They're eliminated. I believe then that we could have an explosion of evangelism and churches across the nation, 10 or 15 people gathered in homes. The people then who show themselves as capable teachers would rise to a prominence, and people would see their talents and the gifts that God has given to them. And then you can raise support. Now, the third thing that I want to mention is that you have to be patient and understand that to put together an effective direct gifting ministry partnership program is going to take a year or two. Many missionaries who are going to the mission field, they have scheduled for them to be in training and in raising support for up to 2 years many times. Now, the missionaries who receive support, they kind of just see you as somebody sending money. And I just want to emphasize that the Direct Gifting Ministry Partnership Program is more than just money. And that's why that communication on 3 times a week, 2 times a week, electronically, just an update. Here's the current situation. Here's the current challenges. Here's the current prayer requests. That's so important. And what we're doing now is we're bringing the power of the Holy Spirit through this ministry partnership program, and that the power of ministry will be greater than it would be if it's run as an enterprise, is currently the case. Hey, I'm going to call this good for now. I'm going to give more information on this, answering more questions, I hope, and giving you the comfort and the excitement about this program going forward and what this is going to do to those of you who are planning training for vocational ministry. Hey, thank you for now. I'll be back with other videos. Thank you.